An old freedman was hiding in a derelict house. The masters located him, though they didn't notice his enormous son. As the overseers forced their way into the wooden dwelling that morning in 1857, hauling elderly Moses by his neck with a coarse rope, while his wife Ruth dropped to the floor, her face bleeding, not one of them entertained the thought that another soul dwelled there with them. Big Samuel was tracking a deer miles off, moving through the dense forest when his existence changed irrevocably. Coming back in the late afternoon, he discovered the door smashed in, furniture wrecked, and his mother slumped in a cabin corner, scarcely able to utter a word. Ruth told him everything through groans of agony and tears. The Whitmore plantation men had finally located his father. She remembered bits of conversation she'd accidentally heard. Something concerning bringing the translator back, about 30 years of loss, about a plantation a 3-day ride southward. Big Samuel observed his mother's shaking hands, noticed the dried blood staining the wooden floor, and something within him fractured. Standing over 7 feet tall, possessing 25 years of harsh training from his own father's hand, he now had a singular purpose: bring Moses back. Dead or alive, the number of men he'd have to confront didn't matter. Those overseers remained unaware, but they'd just stirred something that ought to have stayed concealed in the forest eternally. Before we proceed with this remarkable revenge narrative, remember to subscribe and mention your city in the comments. Let's move forward. For the initial 30 years of his existence, the scent of cotton and perspiration constituted Moses's complete reality. Each morning before daylight, each evening after the final light faded, he labored in the Whitmore plantation fields deep in South Carolina. His fingers recognized the cotton boll's texture, the picking sack's weight, the overseer's whip sting across his back whenever he moved inadequately slowly. Yet Moses differed from the rest. And Master Whitmore recognized this fact. He commanded 3 languages, English from the plantation, French from a traveling merchant who'd spent 2 summers trading with Whitmore, and sufficient Spanish absorbed from Charleston dock workers to negotiate pricing and conditions. This made Moses invaluable, worth more than 10 field hands combined. Master Whitmore utilized him to dazzle foreign purchasers, to interpret agreements, to finalize transactions other plantation owners could only fantasize about. Moses generated thousands of dollars in revenue, though being valuable meant being monitored. Continually monitored. In 1827, during a Charleston business excursion, Moses made his decision. Master Whitmore and his overseers had intoxicated themselves senseless at a waterfront tavern, commemorating a particularly lucrative tobacco arrangement. Moses waited until their snores shook the windows, then merely walked off into the darkness. He didn't flee north like most runaways. The northern routes were watched, patrolled, hazardous. Rather, Moses headed westward toward mountains where white men seldom ventured and terrain could consume a person completely. For 3 weeks, he traveled only after nightfall, resting in hollow trees and rocky shelters. He consumed wild onions and roots, drank from streams, and left no fires, no footprints, no evidence. 3 languages knowledge meant nothing in the wilderness. Here, existence depended on quietness, patience, and the capacity to become unseen. When Moses eventually stopped running, he was over 200 miles from the Whitmore plantation, deep in mountain territory where trees grew so densely that sunlight barely touched the forest floor. Using an axe stolen from an abandoned homestead, he constructed a cabin, small, concealed among massive oaks and pines, nestled in a hollow where you could pass within 50 yards and never notice it. The initial 3 years proved most difficult. Moses hunted with snares and a crude bow he'd fashioned from hickory. He planted a modest garden, burying vegetables under leaves to hide them from view. Each night he listened for horse sounds, for dogs, for men shouting his name, though they never came. By year 4, Moses started thinking he might genuinely be free. That's when he encountered Ruth. She was washing clothes in a stream roughly 3 miles from his cabin when he first saw her. Daughter of freed slaves who'd established a small community in a valley even more isolated than his own. She possessed strong hands, a direct gaze, and wrist scars revealing her understanding of what he'd fled. They didn't exchange life histories. Didn't ask questions that might yield painful answers. They simply existed together. By winter, Ruth had relocated to the cabin. By spring, they'd wedded themselves beneath the stars, no preacher, no documents, merely promises. In 1832, Big Samuel was born. Moses held his son initially and experienced something shifting within his chest. This child would never experience chains, would never know fear's taste accompanying being another's property. Yet Moses also recognized the truth: freedom was fragile. Master Whitmore was the sort who never forgot a debt, never forgave a loss. Thus Moses started teaching his son to endure. Big Samuel grew like nothing Ruth had ever witnessed. By age 8, he matched grown women in their community in height. By 12, he stood eye level with his father. By 15, he loomed over every man Moses had ever encountered, over 7 feet of muscle and bone, with hands capable of snapping branches thick as a man's wrist. Yet Moses didn't merely instruct his son in strength. He taught him to think. Size makes you a target, Moses explained one morning as they inspected rabbit snares in the forest. Pine needles crunched softly beneath their feet, and somewhere overhead a crow called warning. White men see a large black man and perceive a threat. Something to break, to chain, to destroy. So you learn to become invisible when necessary. And when invisibility fails, you learn to become so dangerous they wish they'd never seen you. Big Samuel absorbed everything, tracking deer by grass bending and moisture retention, moving through brush silently by placing each foot carefully, testing before transferring weight, identifying plants, which healed wounds, which could induce sleep, which could kill, fighting with knives, clubs, bare hands, shooting the old rifle Moses had traded 3 deer hides to acquire. Beyond techniques, Moses taught perspective. White men follow patterns, son, Moses said one night by the fire. Flames cast dancing shadows across his weathered face while cooking rabbit scent filled the small cabin. They think themselves unpredictable, but they're not. They drink at identical times, tire at identical times, trust weapons more than instincts. That trust, that's weakness disguised as strength. Big Samuel listened, remembered, comprehended. When Big Samuel turned 16, Ruth finally disclosed his father's complete past, the Whitmore plantation, Moses's real name Benjamin, though never used, the 30 years of running, hiding, watching over shoulders. Your father sacrificed everything so you could be born free, Ruth said, her hands working needle through leather while repairing Big Samuel's hunting vest. Never forget that. Never let anyone take it. Big Samuel looked at his father across the cabin. Moses was 55 now, hair more gray than black, face lined with years of sun and worry, yet his eyes remained sharp, watchful, free. I won't, Mama, Big Samuel promised. He had no idea how soon testing would come. The attack morning, Big Samuel departed before dawn tracking a deer spotted 2 days earlier. The animal had distinctive pattern, one antler shorter than the other, and Big Samuel had patiently learned its routes, feeding times, waiting for perfect shot. He was 3 miles into forest when his father's cabin was destroyed. 5 of them came. Moses was outside chopping wood when they arrived, 4 mounted overseers, and 1 man Moses recognized even after 30 years, Clayton, the head overseer from Whitmore Plantation, now grizzled and scarred, yet still carrying same cruel intelligence in his eyes. Well, well, Clayton said, dismounting slowly. Saddle leather creaked, his horse snorted, smelling Moses's fear. Benjamin, or should I say Moses, Master Whitmore sought you a long time. 30 years. Cost him a fortune. Moses's hand tightened on axe handle. 5 armed men, 1 elderly fugitive. The calculation was simple and brutal. I'm a free man, Moses said quietly. Been free 30 years. Clayton laughed, a sound like metal scraping stone. Free, boy. You were born property and you'll die property. Only question is how much beating before we bring you back. Ruth appeared in cabin doorway, drawn by voices. Big Samuel had inherited his size from her family. Her father had been massive, but she'd inherited her mother's sharp instincts. She saw ropes in overseer's hands and instantly understood. Run, Moses, she screamed. Clayton moved fast for an older man. He backhanded Ruth across the face. She fell hard, head striking doorframe. Blood immediately streamed from a cut above her eye. Moses roared and swung the axe, but he was 55, not 30. One overseer fired pistol into air, explosion froze Moses. In that hesitation moment, two men tackled him, driving him into dirt. They beat him methodically, not to kill, too valuable, but to break. Fists, boots, whip across his back. Moses tasted blood and dirt and something else, slavery's bitter flavor he thought left forever. Clayton threw rope around Moses's neck, pulled tight. Master Whitmore will be real happy. Says he's got 30 years' work to collect. You'll die in his fields, Benjamin. Die knowing you never should have run. They dragged Moses to a horse, tied his hands, looped neck rope to saddle. Ruth lay in doorway, conscious but unable to move, blood pooling beneath her head. She watched them take her husband and couldn't even scream. Before leaving, Clayton kicked over their water barrel, trampled Ruth's garden, broke their table and chairs, erasing 30 years of freedom in 30 minutes of violence. Anyone asks about you, Clayton told the bleeding woman, you tell them Moses went back where he belongs. And if you're smart, you'll forget you ever knew him. Then they rode south, dragging Moses behind them like an animal on a leash. Ruth lay there for hours. Sun climbed, peaked, began descending. Blood dried on her face and in her hair. Her ribs screamed with every breath, at least 2 broken, maybe 3. Yet she stayed conscious, forcing herself to remain alert, to remember everything. She knew her son would eventually come home. And when he did, she needed to tell him everything. Big Samuel returned at sunset. He'd tracked the deer 6 hours but lost it in rocky area where trail disappeared. Frustrated but not discouraged, patience was hunting, he headed home with empty hands and plans to try again tomorrow. He smelled blood before seeing the cabin. His walk became jog, then sprint. Cabin door hung at angle, one hinge torn loose. Garden destroyed. Water barrel on its side, contents soaking into dirt. And his mother. Mama. Big Samuel dropped to knees beside Ruth. Her face was swollen, caked with dried blood, one eye nearly shut. She breathed, but it sounded wet, painful. Samuel. Ruth's voice was barely whisper. They took him. They took your father. Big Samuel's hands trembled as he lifted her carefully, carried her inside to bed. He'd learned field medicine from his mother, which herbs stopped bleeding, which fought infection. Now he worked with mechanical precision, cleaning wounds, binding ribs, all while cold rage built in his chest like winter storm. Tell me everything, he said softly. Ruth talked through pain, through broken ribs and damaged pride. She described the 5 men, especially scar-faced Clayton. She repeated their words, especially crucial ones, Master Whitmore, Whitmore Plantation, 3 days south, near Savannah River. They said, Ruth coughed, blood speckling her lips, he'd work 30 years to pay back what he owes. They said he'd die in the fields. Big Samuel cleaned his hands in water basin, liquid turning pink with his mother's blood. He looked at those hands, massive, calloused, capable of both gentleness and violence. His father had trained him for this exact moment, even if neither had wanted to admit it. I'm going to bring him back, Mama. Samuel, they have guns, dogs. There are dozens. I have everything Papa taught me. Big Samuel interrupted gently. He began gathering supplies, rifle, ammunition, dried meat, water skins, hunting knives. And I have something they don't expect. What's that? Big Samuel looked at his mother with eyes that had suddenly aged a decade. They don't know I exist. The trail was insultingly easy to follow. 5 horses, 1 prisoner, moving leisurely because they weren't worried about pursuit. Why would they be? They'd beaten an old man and a woman. What threat remained? Big Samuel followed at distance, moving parallel to main trail, using forest as cover. His father's training had been thorough, where to step avoiding noise, which trees provided best concealment, how to read land itself to stay invisible. On second day, he caught up enough to observe them from ridgeline. Through trees, he could see his father walking behind a horse, rope around his neck like leash. Moses walked head down, shoulders slumped, playing broken slave. But Big Samuel knew his father. He knew that posture was calculation, not defeat. Smart, Papa. Make them think you're not worth watching closely. Big Samuel wanted to attack right there. His hands itched for rifle, to put bullets through all 5 men and end this quickly. But his father's voice echoed in memory, "Patience separates living hunter from dead one." So Big Samuel pulled back and kept following. On third day, late afternoon, they reached Whitmore Plantation. Big Samuel had never seen anything like it. Main house stood 3 stories tall, white paint gleaming in sunlight like temple to wealth built on suffering. Around it spread dozens of smaller buildings, slave quarters, barns, storage sheds, blacksmith's forge. Beyond those, cotton fields stretched to horizon, white and waiting for harvest. And everywhere, people, dozens of slaves moving through heat, bent over plants or carrying tools or pulling carts, overseers on horses, rifles across saddles, whips coiled at hips. Big Samuel positioned himself on wooded hill overlooking plantation. From here, he could see everything. They took Moses directly to a wooden shed near fields. Punishment building, Big Samuel realized. Heavy door, no windows, built to contain and break. They threw Moses inside, door closed with sound like coffin lid slamming. For next 2 days, Big Samuel simply watched. He counted guards, 7 during day, 3 at night. He memorized shift changes, noticed which overseers drank heavily, observed which paths they favored for patrols. He saw dogs released at dusk but kenneled after midnight. He noticed routines of slaves, who worked where, who carried keys, who looked broken, and who still had defiance in eyes. And on third night of observation, he saw her, a young woman, maybe 20, washing clothes in river bordering plantation's southern edge. She worked by moonlight, alone, movements efficient but constantly watchful. Something in her posture, shoulders set, eyes scanning darkness, told Big Samuel she was still fighting, even if only inside. He waited until she moved farther downstream, away from plantation buildings. Then he emerged from trees, moving slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. The woman saw him and froze. Eyes went wide, this giant appearing from nowhere, dressed in hunting clothes marking him as free. "Please," Big Samuel whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you. I need your help." The woman's hand tightened on washing paddle, a weapon if needed. "Who are you?" "My name is Big Samuel. 3 days ago they brought my father here. Old man, speaks 3 languages. They're keeping him in punishment shed." Recognition flickered across her face. The translator. "I heard Master Whitmore celebrating. Said he'd finally gotten back his most valuable property. What's your name?" "Grace." She glanced nervously toward plantation. Fires burned in distance, faint sound of overseer shouting at someone carried. "You need to leave. If they catch you." "I'm not leaving without my father," Big Samuel said, calm in his voice despite whisper. "But I can't do this alone. I need information, guard schedules, where weapons are kept. Anything you can tell me." Grace studied him long moment. In moonlight, Big Samuel could see scars on her wrists, shackle marks never fully healed. Could see exhaustion in her face, the kind from years, not days. "My whole family is here," Grace said finally. "My father Marcus, my mother Sarah, my younger brother David. We've been enslaved here 15 years. If I help you, if there's a chance," she took breath. "Can you help us too? All of us?" Big Samuel thought of his mother broken and bleeding on their cabin floor. Thought of his father chained in shed after 30 years of freedom. Thought of what those men deserved. "Yes," he said. "I'll help everyone who wants to be free." Grace's expression hardened with determination. "Then we have work to do." Over the next week, Grace became Big Samuel's bridge to the inside. She would slip away during late work hours, meeting him by river to share information and coordinate plans. The plantation, Grace explained, held 43 slaves. Most were too terrified to even think about rebellion. They'd seen what happened to those who tried. Last year, Grace told him during their second meeting, voice hollow with remembered horror, a man named Joshua tried to run. They caught him after 2 days. Master Whitmore had him whipped in front of everyone, 50 lashes. He died before they got to 40. Then Whitmore sold Joshua's wife and 3 children to different plantations. Split them up so they'd never see each other again. He wanted us to know you don't just punish yourself when you rebel. You punish everyone you love. Big Samuel's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. But you're still willing to try. I'm tired of being afraid, Grace said simply. And I'm not alone. There's my father, Marcus. He's the blacksmith, strong as an ox. Knows how to turn tools into weapons. There's old Thomas. Been here 40 years, still remembers how to file through chains. My brother David is fast, carries messages. And my mother Sarah, Grace smiled grimly, she works in kitchen with 3 other women. They see everything, hear everything. Master Whitmore trusts them completely because he thinks they're too stupid or too scared to be dangerous. How many would actually fight? Grace counted on fingers. 15 who would risk everything. Maybe another 10 who would help without fighting, creating distractions, spreading information. The rest, she shrugged, and Big Samuel could see pain in that gesture. Some are too old, too young, too broken. We can't save everyone, Big Samuel. We can only save those willing to die for freedom. The truth hit hard, but Big Samuel accepted it. His father had taught him survival sometimes meant impossible choices. The plan took shape over whispered conversations and careful coordination. They couldn't rely on weapons they didn't have, couldn't produce poison or gunpowder. But they had knowledge of plantations' rhythms, access to Master's routines, an element of surprise. Sarah and kitchen women began their subtle campaign. Nothing obvious, just small additions to evening meals, extra salt making overseers thirsty and irritable, more alcohol poured freely, herbs mixed into stews causing headaches, drowsiness, mild nausea. Not enough to raise suspicion, but enough to make white men tired, slower, less sharp. They eat everything we serve, Sarah told Grace with bitter irony. Never question it. They think we're too dumb to hurt them. That arrogance, that's our weapon. Marcus the blacksmith started accidentally weakening equipment. Wagon wheels developed hairline cracks, bridle straps filed thin where they wouldn't show, door hinges loosened just enough. He also began secretly weakening chains, filing through links at night, covering work with dirt and rust so it looked like natural wear. Old Thomas, who appeared too feeble to threaten anyone, had steady hands and sharp eyes. Each night he spent minutes sawing at lock mechanism on Moses's punishment shed using metal piece Marcus had smuggled to him. Just a little each time, patient and invisible. Big Samuel prepared external attack. Using everything his father had taught him, he set traps throughout plantation's perimeter, hidden ropes at throat height in dark passages, small pits covered with leaves near fence sections, boards with nails concealed under debris on patrol paths, carefully positioned stones that could topple oil lamps at crucial moments. We're not trying to win a battle, Big Samuel explained to Grace and Marcus during Secret Woods meeting. Pine and earth scent surrounded them, somewhere an owl called. We're creating chaos, multiple problems at once, fear and confusion. Then we move during that confusion. When? Marcus asked. His hands, scarred from years at forge, clenched into fists. Soon. A few more days to weaken them, weaken their readiness. Then. But plans don't survive contact with fear. Peter had survived 15 years on Whitmore Plantation by being useful, by being obedient, by never ever making waves. He worked in main house, close to Master Whitmore himself. He had privileges, better food, lighter work, occasional coin, or word of approval. While others slept in crowded slave quarters, Peter had small room in main house's servant wing. While others wore rags, Peter had clothes without holes. He'd survived by reading power currents and swimming with them, never against. So when Peter started noticing subtle changes, slaves whispering in corners, unusual activity near punishment shed, strange exhaustion affecting overseers, fear gripped him like vice around his heart. If rebellion happened and failed, everyone would suffer, innocent with guilty. Master Whitmore didn't distinguish, and Peter had too much to lose. He found Clayton one evening, head overseer drinking alone in barn. Whiskey and hay scent filled space. "Sir," Peter said, head bowed, hands clasped, playing perfect servant. "I need to tell you something. Some of the slaves, I think they're planning something." Clayton's scarred face turned toward him, eyes sharp despite alcohol. "Planning what?" "I don't know exactly, sir, but I've seen strange movements. Heard whispers about escape, about violence. I think," Peter added details he'd guessed, trying to seem more helpful, more valuable, "it might happen near the stables soon, maybe involving 5 or 6 of the strong ones." Peter didn't know full plan. Grace and Marcus had been too careful, but he knew enough to sound credible, and he embellished, creating picture of small, manageable threat. Clayton didn't wait. That same night, he doubled guards, added 2 extra patrols, kept lamps burning that usually stayed dark. From his woods position, Big Samuel saw changes immediately: extra men near stables, different patrol patterns, lamp burning in previously dark section, same lamp he'd planned to use as signal point. His heart sank. Someone had talked. Next night, Grace came to their meeting spot in tears. Moonlight caught tracks on her face, made them shine like scars. "Someone betrayed us," she whispered. "I don't know who, but overseers are alert. Some of our people are too scared to continue. They want to wait, maybe months, until things calm down." Big Samuel felt rage threatening to overwhelm thinking. He wanted to scream, break things, attack right now despite increased guards. But then his father's voice echoed, "When trap fails, smart hunter doesn't give up. He adjusts." "No," Big Samuel said firmly. "We don't wait. We adjust the plan." "How?" "They know something's happening, but not what or when exactly. So we feed them false information. Make them think plan is something different, somewhere else, different time." Grace wiped tears, hope rekindling in eyes. "How do we do that?" "The traitor. They don't know full plan, right? Only pieces. We were careful compartmentalizing." "Yes." "Good. So we let different false pieces slip to different people. Make it seem escape will happen at stables Saturday night. Make it seem only 5 or 6 people involved, not 15. Make them prepare for wrong thing, wrong place, wrong time." Over next 2 days, they carefully spread misinformation. Grace mentioned to Slave she didn't fully trust that something might happen near stables in 2 days. Marcus let slip to another worker that only strongest few were involved. Old Thomas, who rarely spoke to anyone, suddenly mentioned to House Slave that Saturday night, when moon full, some folks planning something foolish. Sure enough, information traveled. Peter heard fragments and reported them to Clayton. Feeling secure in loyal informant position, Overseer positioned extra men near stables, planned to keep more guards awake Saturday night. Felt confident he'd crush rebellion before it started. But real plan would happen Friday night, not at stables, but multiple points simultaneously. And it would involve every ally they had. "My father's been in that shed 2 weeks, Big Samuel told Grace and Marcus Thursday night. Rain sent filled air, thunder rumbled distance. We attack tomorrow. No more waiting. Either we get free or we die trying." Grace looked at this giant with something like awe. "You really mean that? All of us? All who choose to come?" Big Samuel corrected. "Freedom is a choice, even a dangerous one." Friday evening came with heavy clouds covering moon. Perfect conditions for violence. Kitchen women served evening meal with even more alcohol than usual. Overseers, already tired from extra patrol duties, drank gratefully. Whiskey was cheap and strong. By 10 o'clock, half struggled to stay alert. 2 overseers got into loud argument over slave girl, both claiming rights to her. Argument drew attention, created exactly distraction needed. Clayton had to separate them, head overseer's attention divided. Children slaves moved through grounds with water buckets, doing evening tasks no one questioned. No one noticed they were positioning those buckets at specific locations near specific buildings, all containing items needed soon. Big Samuel moved through darkness at plantation's edge, every muscle coiled. He'd gone over plan 100 times. Now only execution remained. Signal came at midnight. One kitchen woman accidentally knocked over oil lamp in outdoor kitchen area. Flame caught dry straw, not enough to burn buildings, but enough to create smoke, light, confusion. Someone shouted. Guards turned toward fire. That's when old Thomas, inside punishment shed, forced weakened lock one final time. Metal snapped with sound like breaking bone. Moses, who'd conserved strength for 2 weeks, pushed door open and stepped into night air. At same moment, Big Samuel emerged from behind barn. First overseer never saw him coming. Big Samuel struck with rifle butt, single precise blow to temple. Men dropped silently. Big Samuel caught rifle before it clattered, muffling sound against chest. Second overseer, responding to fire, ran around corner directly into tripwire trap. He went down hard, scream cutting through night as he landed on nail-embedded board Big Samuel had hidden. Cry mixed with sudden sound of cow someone had deliberately released. Chaos upon chaos. Marcus and 3 other strong men broke free of deliberately weakened chains. Metal links snapped with sounds like gunshots. They moved toward weapon storage shed using tools Marcus had prepared and hidden. Lock was old, rusted, gave way after 2 hard sledgehammer strikes. Suddenly slaves who'd spent years cowering held axes, hammers, tools that could split wood or split skulls. Women threw carefully positioned water buckets onto specific patches of dry hay and wood, then lit them with embers hidden in clay pots. Not massive fires, controlled burns meant to create smoke, fear, confusion without destroying cotton that was everyone's livelihood. Smoke rose quickly, thick and dark, carrying burning hay scent and terror. Master Whitmore burst from main house in nightshirt, shotgun in hand, screaming orders. Behind him came more overseers, some still drunk, all confused by multiple emergencies erupting simultaneously. Slaves are rebelling. Get dogs. Get. That's when Moses appeared in firelight. Free, standing tall despite 2 weeks' imprisonment, despite beatings and humiliation. His shirt hung in tatters, revealing whip scars old and new. But his eyes were clear, sharp, alive. And behind him, emerging from smoke like nightmare-made flesh, Big Samuel. Over 7 feet of muscle and determination, holding rifle, face set in expression of absolute purpose. Master Whitmore's face went pale, mouth opened and closed like fish drowning in air. You, Benjamin, has a son. My name is Moses, the old man said quietly. Firelight danced across weathered face. And yes, you should have let me stay free. Whitmore raised shotgun toward Big Samuel. His next words carried across plantation loud enough for every slave to hear, that boy is my property too. Born of my slave, which makes him mine by law. Clayton, kill them both. That declaration changed everything. It wasn't just about one family anymore. It was about principle Master Whitmore had just announced to everyone. Freedom was illusion. Children born free could still be claimed as property. No one who had ever been touched by slavery would ever truly escape its reach. Slaves who'd been wavering, uncertain, afraid, preparing to run if things went wrong, heard those words and something broke inside them. Or maybe something broke free. Grace, who'd been ready to flee if needed, instead picked up fallen overseer's whip. She cracked it toward Clayton as he aimed rifle at Big Samuel. Leather caught his arm, spoiling shot. Bullet went wide, punching into wooden post. David, the fast boy, kicked over another lamp, spreading fire to fence section, opening perimeter gap. Sarah, old kitchen woman, emerged from main house with Master Whitmore's own pistol, stolen from his study. She didn't know how to shoot it, but just holding it made 2 overseers hesitate, uncertain. Before we continue, if you've made it this far, comment freedom so I know who you are. Thank you. Let's keep going. Battle that followed wasn't clean or heroic. It was brutal, ugly, desperate. Shots rang out, deafening in night. One of Marcus's allies took bullet in chest and fell, blood spreading across shirt in firelight. A woman was shoved to ground by overseer and would have been trampled by panicked horse if Grace hadn't hit men with shovel, metal ringing against skull. Big Samuel moved through it all with calculated violence. He didn't shoot wildly. Every shot counted, every bullet precious. He aimed for Overseer's coordinating defense. First Clayton, leader. Big Samuel's shot took him in shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him into dirt, rifle clattering away. Then men controlling dogs, shot to leg bringing him down screaming. Without coordination, dogs scattered. Some attacked whoever screamed loudest, unable distinguishing friend from foe in chaos. Others simply ran from fire and smoke, hunting instincts overwhelmed by panic. Moses, despite age and weakness, fought like man possessed. He'd spent 30 years free and would die before returning to chains. Using knife Marcus had given him, he fought with lifetime of suppressed rage finally unleashed. He wasn't trying to kill, he was trying to survive, to give his son time protecting people who'd risked everything. But Big Samuel's true genius showed in strategy. He wasn't trying to kill everyone or burn everything down. He was creating a corridor, path from punishment shed through chaos toward west fence where he'd already weakened posts. Anyone who wants freedom, follow me, he roared, voice cutting through screams and gunfire. Now. This is your only chance. Some ran immediately, Grace pulling mother and helping father, Marcus carrying wounded men still breathing despite chest wound, old Thomas moving surprisingly fast for age, David and 6 others, faces set with determination born of desperation. But some froze, too scared, too conditioned to obedience, too uncertain freedom was even possible, that this giant could actually lead them to safety. They stood paralyzed while world burned around them. Big Samuel saw them and felt heartbreak. But his father was beside him now, and Grace's family, and 15 others who'd chosen to risk everything. He couldn't wait. Every second was life or death. Last chance, he shouted once more, voice raw. A few more ran, spurred by final call. But at least 10 stayed, paralyzed by fear, or simply unable breaking psychological chains binding more securely than any iron. Big Samuel saw them, truly saw them, and felt weight of it. But survival meant moving. Go, Moses told his son, reading hesitation in Big Samuel's face. Get them out. Not without you. I'm right behind you, boy. Go. Big Samuel led charge toward west fence. He prepared escape route carefully, 3 horses with loosened tethers, wagon with damaged best wheel but functional enough for desperate run, fence itself weakened at specific points. Behind them, plantation descended into complete chaos. Buildings burned with controlled fires creating smoke walls. Livestock ran free, adding confusion. Overseers shouted contradictory orders. Slaves who'd stayed behind now had to be dealt with carefully, they were valuable property after all, and killing them meant more financial loss. That hesitation, that property value calculation, bought escapees precious minutes. They crashed through weak fence section. Wood splintered and cracked. Big Samuel lifted 2 small children who couldn't climb fast enough and threw them bodily over remaining obstacle. Grace helped mother up and over. Marcus carried wounded men over shoulders like grain sack. Moses was last, covering retreat, his old rifle fired measured shots keeping overseers at distance, making them take cover instead of pursuing. Then they were through, into darkness, into forest Big Samuel knew like heartbeat. Behind them, pursuit sounds began, dogs barking, men shouting, horses being saddled. But Big Samuel had one final surprise prepared. Throughout observation week, he'd prepared secondary trap system on most likely pursuit paths, covered pits breaking horse legs, tripwires in dark sending riders flying, false trails leading to dead ends and thick brush. First pursuing horseman hit wire and went down hard, scream cut short as neck broke in fall. His horse screamed too, sound sending chills through everyone hearing it. Second group of dogs ran into pit trap Big Samuel had covered with branches and leaves. 3 dogs fell in, yelps of pain and fear echoing through forest. It wouldn't stop pursuit forever, but would slow them enough. Keep moving, Big Samuel ordered, voice urgent but controlled. We've got 10 miles to cover before dawn, and they'll be coming with everything they have. They didn't stop running until sunrise. By then, they were deep in mountains, following paths Big Samuel knew would be nearly impossible for outsiders to track, paths looking like animal trails, crossing streams multiple times confusing dogs, leading through terrain so rough horses couldn't follow. Wounded men had died during night. Marcus had carried body over hour, refusing to leave until Grace gently told him they had to let go. Living needed all energy to survive. They'd started with 17 people. Now they were 16. Big Samuel found Hidden Valley just after sunrise, place discovered years ago while hunting, water, game, enough concealment to rest without being easily seen. Moses collapsed against tree, body finally giving out. Big Samuel knelt beside him, checking for injuries beyond exhaustion. "We made it, Papa," Big Samuel said softly. Moses looked at his son with eyes holding both pride and sorrow. "We made it. But we left people behind." Words hung in air like smoke. That night, around carefully hidden fire producing almost no smoke, they counted blessings and losses, 16 people free, but dozens left behind. Some who'd helped but been too scared to run, some too old making journey, some too young, some simply too broken believing freedom possible. And one man dead during escape, his name Marcus whispered like prayer. Thomas. His name was Thomas. Grace sat beside Big Samuel. Her mother, father, brother huddled nearby. In firelight, her face looked both younger and older than 20 years. "Do you think we did right thing?" she asked quietly. "We didn't save everyone. We left people behind." Big Samuel was quiet long time, staring into flames. Wood smoke mixed with pine and earth scent. Somewhere in darkness, Owl called. Finally he spoke. "My father spent 30 years free. 30 years living like men instead of property. He taught me freedom isn't something given. It's something taken, something fought for, something that comes with impossible choices." He looked around at exhausted faces. "We didn't save everyone. We saved ones willing to risk everything for chance to live free. The others," his voice caught, "maybe they'll find courage one day. Maybe they won't. But we can't carry people to freedom. They have to walk there themselves." Moses placed hand on son's massive shoulder. Even sitting, Big Samuel towered over father. "You did what I taught you," Moses said, voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. "You survived. You fought. And you got your old man back." "We got each other back," Big Samuel corrected. Sound from camp edge made everyone freeze. But it was just Ruth arriving on horse Big Samuel had left for her at predetermined meeting point. She'd insisted on traveling despite injuries, refusing to stay behind. When Ruth saw Moses alive, she broke down completely. Tears came in great heaving sobs as they held each other, 30 years of partnership, survival, love enduring through impossible circumstances. Big Samuel looked away, giving privacy, and found himself watching Grace's family, her father Marcus, hands scarred from forge, holding wife Sarah close, her brother David, only 14, sleeping against tree with exhaustion of someone who'd run for life. All of them together first time in years without chains or masters watching. They were building something. Not what they'd lost, not what had been taken from them, but something new. Something belonging only to them. Miles away, as dawn broke over Whitmore Plantation, Master Whitmore stood in ruined barn, staring at destruction. 3 buildings damaged by fire. 4 overseers injured, 1 dead. 16 slaves escaped, over $30,000 in property, gone. His prize translator, man spent 30 years trying to reclaim, vanished again. But more than financial loss, more than embarrassment, what truly terrified Whitmore was look in eyes of slaves who remained. Fear, yes, but also a question: if 16 could escape, why not more? That question would haunt Whitmore Plantation for years. Some slaves would stay, too broken or too practical, risking death in wilderness. But others would remember that night. Remember that a 7-foot-tall man had walked out of forest and turned impossible plan into freedom for those brave enough taking it. And in territories far west, in hidden valleys and mountain camps, stories would begin circulating. Stories of Big Samuel, giant who came from wilderness saving father. Stories of slaves who chose death over chains. Stories keeping idea of freedom alive, even in darkest places. Years later, Big Samuel would teach others what Moses had taught him: how to survive, how to fight, how to stay free. Hidden Valley became way station for other runaways, place where freedom wasn't just dream, but tangible reality you could touch, taste, defend. Grace became his partner in all things, though they never formally married. They'd both learned civilization trappings often meant traps. Her family became his family. Children born in that valley grew up knowing only freedom, though parents made sure they understood cost required. Moses lived another 15 years in that valley, teaching anyone listening about languages, strategic thinking, surviving in a world wanting to break you. He died peacefully in sleep, surrounded by family, having tasted more years of freedom than slavery. Big Samuel never became hero in traditional sense. No monuments built. No history books recorded name. He lived rest of life in hiding, always watchful, always ready. But in whispered conversations of enslaved, in nightmares of slave catchers, in quiet pride of those who'd escaped and lived telling about it, Big Samuel's name meant something. It meant freedom wasn't just dream. It was something you could fight for if willing, paying price. Even if that price was blood, loss, and weight of those you couldn't save. As Big Samuel sat by fire that first freedom night, surrounded by people who'd risked everything on his word, he understood something his father had tried teaching all along: freedom isn't clean. It isn't fair. It doesn't save everyone. But for those tasting it, even once, even at cost of everything else, it's worth more than life itself. And that's truth no master, no overseer, no amount of chains or laws or violence could ever change. Some prices are worth paying. Some battles are worth fighting, even when you can't save everyone. That night, 16 people slept as free men and women for first time in their lives, or first time in decades. They slept with full bellies from food Big Samuel had cached, with clean water from stream, with forest sounds around them instead of chain sounds. And if their dreams were haunted by faces of those left behind, well, that too was part of freedom's price. A price Big Samuel would carry for rest of life, along with knowledge he'd done what he could, saved who he could, and given them all something no master could ever take again: chance choosing own path, even if that path led through blood and fire to uncertain future. Freedom. Real, hard-won, precious freedom.